If you have heard of the pulp fiction genre, then you must be familiar with the exaggerated and often offensive portrayals of jungle natives. These old photographs we are about to explore capture a period in history when white damsels were pitted against jungle savages, creating a narrative that was both thrilling and deeply rooted in racism. Looking back, it's hard to understand why these magazines were so fixated on depicting the inhabitants of Africa, Indonesia, and South America as bloodthirsty sexual predators. But the truth is, these magazines were intended for a specific audience, white men. The imagery of a white woman being attacked by a savage, black man was meant to strike fear into their hearts. What does this mean for us today? It suggests that white men of that era had a deep and abiding worry that their women were at risk of being taken by these black men, portrayed as savagely and threateningly as possible. It's a troubling reflection of the racial anxieties that permeated society. But it wasn't just Africa that served as a backdrop for these stories. Any setting with a less civilized race would do, as long as the whites played the victims of their animalistic desires. And of course, the whites always emerged victorious in the end, with good triumphing over the bad. Now, let's talk about the damsel in distress trope. This age-old narrative always featured a weak woman in need of a male savior. What changed through the decades was the identity of the attacker. The faces of the attacker in popular media varied, depending on the fears of the culture at that time: monsters, mad scientists, Nazis, hippies, bikers, aliens. The list goes on. But amidst the predictable nature of these stories, there were some variations. Every once in a while, a strange trope would emerge: the evil and mysterious white woman who commanded native slaves. These women, almost always blonde, used the natives to do their bidding. The natives were predictably depicted as dumb and barbaric, but what was the significance of this repeated theme of the blonde puppet master? Was this blonde devil woman of the jungle a male fantasy or fear? Perhaps it was both. One example that stands out is Jojo Congo King from November 1947. This comic featured an evil blonde who easily manipulated the jungle natives to carry out her sinister plans. The natives were like putty in her hands, obedient to her every command. It's a disturbing portrayal that raises questions about the intentions behind such narratives. But let's not dwell too long on this sad phenomenon. Thankfully, this trope faded into near extinction by the 1970s. However, before we conclude, let's immerse ourselves in the images and reminisce about that era. The most exciting part is still ahead, as we explore more examples of this troubling theme. These old photographs provide us with a glimpse into a period of history that reflects the racial anxieties and stereotypes prevalent at the time. They serve as a reminder of the progress we have made, as well as the work that still lies ahead in combating racism and discrimination. So, let's savor history through these photos and reflect on the lessons they teach us.